What is up, everyone? Welcome in for the first ever episode of the Beneath the Waves podcast. My name is Matt, and tonight I am joined by.
Hi, I'm Heather.
Hi, I'm Derek.
And I'm Alex.
And we'd like to, like I said, welcome you into the first ever episode of our podcast. Heather, for those who might be unfamiliar, can you let them know what BTW is all about?
Sure. So BTW stands for Beneath the Waves, and it really started from the four of us connecting through the Kraken online community. We started to enjoy chatting during games. Chatting, ragging on each other, going off the rails, typical friend banter, if you will. But I think what's been really fun is having people join us and hang out during the games as well. We have a lot of fun celebrating goals, commiserating on losses, and laughing during the times when we really needed levity during some games. And I know we're all really looking forward to doing it all over again this season. So we promise some great Kraken content. So let that pique your interest and then stay for the fun, because you really don't want to miss out on being part of our inside jokes.
We are all here together, like Heather said, to recap our beloved Seattle Kraken. And we are 1 week into the season, folks. We have 3 games down. Not such a great start. We are off to a 1-2 start this season. We'll take you through each of these games here, but just kind of overall, what are the vibes like? How are we feeling after our first week of regular season competition? Alex, why don't you go first?
I'm feeling deflated. I think that's the best way to kind of go about it. I don't know. Feel like the vibes were really high in preseason. Everybody was excited for Kraken hockey to be back. There's disappointments in baseball and other types of sports everybody follows. So, hockey is one of those sports that everybody's amped to actually start watching again. I don't know. Preseason was really solid. And then, I don't know, that first game, the way that first game happened and ended, it was just such a deflation. And now 3 games in, I don't know. I'm such a hit and miss right now. It's the emotions are all over the place. Like, I love this team, I hate this team. I love this team, I hate this team. It's a vicious cycle of this type of a relationship that in normal circumstances you'd be like, why are you still doing this? But it's hockey, so you just accept it. And I'm just going to put myself on this roller coaster as we continue on.
Derek, what about you?
Matt, I'm pretty excited, I would say. Like Alex said, to see the Kraken back in action. And we did take a couple gut punches in week one, 2 losses. But I really think that the Kraken were largely competitive in all of the games. They weren't really like completely blown out in any of the games. We led in expected goals for 2 of the games. So I really think that that's a good sign, and that the roster composition is one in which, we could take off at any moment, or we could absolutely poop the bed at any moment. And it's really just you're biting your nails to see which one you're going to see during each game. So I'm pretty excited. I'm optimistic. But yeah, it does suck to start out 1-2.
Heather, where are you sitting?
I'm still excited that hockey's back. Like, that's still my main feeling, is that hockey's back. But I keep going back to being concerned that we just didn't do enough to change things in the off season. And so I do worry a little bit about that. But I also understand that there were some new additions, and there's new lines, and there's new coaching systems, and we kind of have to be a little bit patient with that, because a lot of the players in interviews have even said, we're still getting to know each other. And I do think, as much as it's strange to have 1 game at home and then some days off and then 3 games on the road trip's going to help a lot to bring some of the guys together and work on that chemistry. So still in the optimistic category for right now.
For myself, I'm trying to stay optimistic as well. This is my first entry into following a hockey team and stuff like that, and I decided day one to jump in the deep end, and I'm still maybe floundering in the deep end with maybe like throw out a little lifesaver or something like that. No, but it's happy, desperate splashing right now. For those unfamiliar with us geographically, Alex and I are the Canadian half of the bunch, and it's been Thanksgiving weekend up here. And going out for Thanksgiving dinner on Saturday night with the family, I snuck my little phone off to the side so I could still watch the Wild game, because I still want to follow along. And it's not like those first, like we said off the top, going 1-2 is gonna make me fall off the wagon or anything like that. But we need some life re-injected into our veins, I think, in this next coming week to bounce back from some of those slumps that we had. And we started off the season on a very high positive note, rolling out the blue carpet for the home opener. The first time the Seattle had the home opening game to start the season. And Derek and Heather, you were there for the home opener game. Why don't you take us through kind of what the vibes were in the arena before we break down the game itself?
Even the blue carpet was high energy, super fun. I'm so glad they did something like that. You know, Coachella has actually been doing that for their whole existence. I know all the few years they've been around, but it is nice to see that tradition sort of carried on at the Kraken, because there's nothing like getting to see them arrive and, you know, shake hands and sign things and whatnot. So vibes were very high. And even walking into the arena, like vibes were super high. Everyone's super pumped. And I think that continued through a good chunk of the game, especially because we scored first and had those two goals. And I think that helped really lift spirits. And it was, you know, if you've ever been to CPA, it's one of those things where everybody is really excited when things go our way and deflated and quiet when things don't. And this was a really big testament to that. You know, when we had the one goal taken away for offsides, everything got really, really quiet. So until then, vibes were great. Vibes were high. People were flying, but you know, that's how it goes.
Yeah, I completely agree with Heather there. I went with my dad and we got there a few hours early. We missed the blue carpet. I think we got there right at like 11:30 or maybe like 11:15. But there were a lot of people that were up there hours before the game started. A lot of action outside. You know, they were giving out free free baskets of Doritos and Pepsis, and the vibes were good and everyone was happy. I think everyone was really restless, you know, missing Kraken hockey until now. And then like Heather said, getting those first two goals, like after coming off the season we had last year and not seeing any Kraken hockey, obviously the preseason, but to hit the regular season with a running start like that, I think felt really good for everyone that was there. Obviously, it was taken away pretty quickly in the second half of that game, but it was a good first half to see, especially with a brand new coach to the Kraken and Dan Bylsma. It was nice to see maybe some of the shift that's going to be happening this year.
Yeah, so with the game itself, we, like you said, started off really strong. We had Vince Dunn opening the scoring with the first goal of the season, knocking in his own rebound in the second period, and then shortly after that, Eeli Tolvanen, Derek's pick for the first goal of the season. He was just that close, so close to getting his prediction right. Followed up soon after by tipping in a shot from Riker Evans, and we were cruising. We were off to the races. Things were good. The group was vibing and gelling together. And then in that second period there, St. Louis started to go to town on us. They scored 3 unanswered goals in less than 2 minutes. Two of those by Jordan Kyrou, who like that dude has rockets on his feet. He was blasting past people. He knocked in two of those goals, and the Kraken just couldn't catch up. We had very little offensive output in there. I can't remember the exact time that it said, but I remember during the broadcast that I was watching, it said the Kraken haven't registered a shot since 11:50 of the third period. I think that was with 2 minutes left or something like that. So just a whole lot of nothing happening towards the end of the game. And I think that kind of goes with what you said with the arena too, just deflated. All the energy was sucked out when that Alexiak goal got called back, and then they scored those three in a row. Do we have any kind of silver linings that we could take from that game? Heather, you're nodding aggressively for those in the
100%.
audio format. So what silver lining do you have?
That was my cue to you that I do have. I do have a silver lining. So silver lining, for sure, new coaching staff. That being announced in the arena was some of the most just amazing applause and cheers that I've ever heard, especially when we're talking about her, which is Jess Campbell. Coach Jess Campbell had the biggest applause of them all. Well-deserved, and much to my delight, and maybe a little bit of a tear, just for the history being made. And I don't know that you could be there without being a little bit moved. Like I think everyone was. It was really pretty cool. So that was silver lining. New leadership group being announced, also silver lining, very exciting, to have Jordan Eberle be captain, and to have Maddie join that system of leaders. So definitely some silver lining. Some players stood out, not to be a broken record, but Shane Wright really looked pretty good. He's just so smart on the ice, and you can really see that. So we started to see more of that from him. So he really did look good. So there was some good things to take away from that first game.
Yeah, just for myself, like I feel like I've been beating the dead horse about we need leadership, leadership, leadership. I'm so glad we can finally put to bed who is going to be the captain of the Seattle Kraken. Jordan Eberle completely deserved it. I think he's really been the unsung leader of the team since the departure of Mark Giordano in the first season. So the fact that we were finally able to announce him as captain, I still don't understand why Dave Haxtell never named a captain after the departure. To me, that just never made sense. And to be honest, like I see a lot of people online being like, they have assistants, like we don't need a leadership, and we don't need a captain. And it's just like I think what we've seen over the last couple of years under the Haxtell era was we needed a leader. We need one sole leader to really lead this team. And, I think Jordan Eberle embodies that, on the ice and the way he plays the game. And we did see that. We have seen that already this season. So that's just one thing that I look at this and I say, we got this. We can finally put this to bed, and he's going to lead this team into the promised land because it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Oh, wow. That's pretty optimistic of you there, Alex. I'm
Yeah,
proud of you
considering I
for
did
that.
the whole 76 points,
Yeah.
I
I agree with Heather and Alex that seeing the new leadership group was really exciting, especially being there live. When all the players came out for warmups, like I mentioned, I was there with my dad, and I pointed out to my dad, hey, like none of them are wearing letters, but that was mistaken. Eberle and I think Larson were wearing the A's still, but I didn't see them at first. So that was part of the roller coaster I went on. And then I saw that they were wearing A's, and I was like, oh, okay, if they're wearing A's, then like there's not going to be a captain announced because like this is just like last year. And then they were called out in like numerical order from like least to greatest. And when they skipped over number 7 to go to number 10, I was like, oh my God, like like everyone just knew right then. And it was super hype. As far as Beniers being an A, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I feel like it's a little bit premature. I think that the A could have easily gone to a guy like McCann or Bjorkstrand, who have already proven that they can perform like consistently and are veteran presences on the team. It feels like even like that might be an additional expectation put onto Beniers that might hurt him even more when he wasn't able to live up to expectations last year. Um, so yeah, I don't know what you guys think about that, but I thought that was a little bit premature. But I am excited to see this new leadership group, and I'm excited for what they're going to do.
I just want to echo that really quickly because I do think that, naming Beniers an assistant captain was a little premature. Like, I feel like there's better options. And I'm not saying that Beniers is not a leader, but, from the season he had last year, he's already stressed out and pressured. He's got a new contract that's worth a lot of money. He's coming into a new season where he had a lackluster season last year. You're slapping the A on him, and everyone's already been talking about he's going to be the potential next future captain after Jordan Eberle leaves. I just feel like you give him a season where it's just, hey, focus on you, focus on your play, get back into it because Yanni Gord is an assistant captain. We don't know his future, so give it to somebody that has already who can perform, like you mentioned, Jared McCann or an Oliver Bjorkstrand. They can perform. Adding a little bit of extra leadership, got no problem with that. But I'm worried that you put that little bit of extra responsibility on Beniers' shoulders. I'm worried he might crack.
Yeah, my big silver lining is the Eberle captaincy. For those who maybe watched our previous things, I'm from Regina, Saskatchewan, where Jordan Eberle is from. He played for the Pats here. If I go to the arena a little bit away from me, his name and number is hanging up in the rafters. So it was a pretty cool moment. Like that was my instant connection to the team when that inaugural draft was announced. So I felt pretty hyped on that. I think it was tweeted out that he showed up like 35 minutes early for the blue carpet. He got there way before, and people are saying like, "Oh, players always show up early. That's not a big deal." I was like, "No way, man. He's showing up early because he wants to get that C stitch on his chest." And then I got to do the quote tweet of myself saying, "I told you so," because it ended up happening. That's pretty exciting to see, and just watching the different videos that people are putting on Twitter and YouTube Shorts and all that kind of stuff. Just goosebump moments of envious jealous missing that I didn't get to be there to see such a cool moment like that. But that was pretty cool. And like we're gonna talk about shortly here, he's already starting to step up and do pretty well for the team. So we'll get to there right away. But after this game, there was some additional exciting news announced the following morning. Derek, I think you maybe should take this one. What was the exciting follow-up to our first game loss?
Yeah, very exciting. Grubauer had a poor start, a poor first game. He let in more goals than expected, so that's obviously bad. And then the next day, seeing that Joey Daccord got a 5-year, $5 million AAV deal to basically ensure that he's going to be the next guy and that Grubauer is on his way out. Yeah, I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on this deal a little bit if you're willing to entertain me.
I'll start because I'm maybe like the least informed financially speaking. We'll say, like I'm very surface level. I'm the green guy of the group, just coming in and figuring all this stuff out. I thought it was pretty exciting. Like I know there's lots of anti-Gru rhetoric on the internet, and we'll get to that in a little bit as well. Tease for later, but just locking Joey down is exciting. I know there's lots of talk about being kind of premature, maybe shoveling out that much money for him after having one hot season and seeing if he can replicate that. But I don't know. I thought it was a nice upturn and some exciting news after kind of a downer the day the night before.
Surprise to anybody, I'm a big Joey fan. I'm not a Gru hater by any means. I'm actually a big Gru fan as well. But I'm excited to have Joey long term. I think it's interesting they did it before he had a second season to sort of prove himself, because last season obviously played really well. And I know maybe this is a surprise just because I'm really pro Joey, but I do think it's a little bit of a shock that they did it so quickly. But I also think, it's instills confidence in him to really perform well again this season. And I think that speaks volumes. I want Joey here long term, so I was thrilled by it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the goalies this season. I don't know. I have from 3 games, I really can't even give what's up and what's down at this point because it's just too small of a sample size. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how they sort of shake out 1A, 1B, or maybe just a really true 50-50 tandem.
I love the deal. I'm not going to lie, I didn't expect it to show up the first game, but right at the morning after the first game, that was the last thing I expected. But I feel like the contract's fair. May have been a little bit too much money. Like I'm going to say that. I was kind of thinking maybe a $4.5 million deal, but that's something that we can dissect throughout the season. But I also like to preface, I'm not a Grubauer hater. I am just a contract critique. So I really review contracts, and if they play to that ability, then I have no problem. But if it's bad, then I'm going to critique you. Anyways, I think it really cements the fact that Joey's going to be the goaltender of the future for the Kraken. But it's kind of going to be really interesting. I think it was done a little early. There's still a lot of hockey to be played this season. And if he has a season like he did last, then it's a home run. If he's somewhere in the middle, it might be, paying him a little bit too much than what we should be paying him. And if he has a terrible year, then I think there's going to be a lot of angry people. But that's something that I think we're going to be breaking down a little bit further on with how Ron Francis has handled the contract situation.
I agree with a lot of the points that you guys all brought up. I think if Joey is a middle of the pack goalie under this contract, I don't think it'll be much different than, paying Grubauer $5.9 million a year and him being middle of the pack, or even worse some years, As far as the contract goes, I think that, Grubauer, he was like a Vezina finalist before we gave him the contract, right? Joey, like everyone here has already said, on the premature side, really doesn't have that large of a track record at all. So it is curious to me that it's such there's so much term, I guess, is what I was kind of confused about at such a high price. But with the cap going up and stuff, I don't know. But I do think it solidifies that Grubauer is out, probably. I think it'll be interesting to see if Grubauer absolutely balls out this year, what that's going to look like. Maybe it's I guess, a trade where we could get a lot of value out of it. I don't know. Maybe if he balls out, but yeah, if not, then he's probably just dipping. So it's sad.
I'm just going to interject. There's 31 other GMs in the NHL. Not one of those GMs is looking at Grubauer's $5.9 million contract, looks at his stat line that he's been with the Kraken since he signed it, and says, "I want him." And that's not me being a Grubauer hater. That's purely on statistics. He hasn't registered a save percentage above 900 since he's joined the Kraken. He was a Vezina candidate with the Colorado Avalanche. If you look at their defense core when he played with the Avalanche, it was spectacular. And that's no criticism to even the Kraken's level of defense. I think when it comes to something like that, I really do see it. And I just go, I think Grubauer is a very average, above average, but average skill level goaltender. And I think we've seen that every single year. I just don't think anybody's going to trade for him. Like, to me, that's a non-starter. Like, no other team is going to come over to the Kraken, to Ron Francis, and be like, we're this desperate for a goaltender. We're willing to trade a 7th round draft pick for Grubauer. Can you retain? Like, to me, that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, because I know the amount of support that Grubauer has. And like I said, I'm not a Grubauer hater. I'm a contract hater. But he just hasn't played up to that $5.9 million. Daccord, I've been very, very happy with his performance, but he's also been making I think it's like 1.2, 1.3 million. And the level that he's been playing at for that contract exceeds all expectations. And that's just statistically based. And I'd be exactly as critical against Daccord if as a $5 million player, if you're producing garbage, then you're going to get criticized. And I think that's kind of where I stand with this, is that right now, contract looks great if he performs how he did last season. If he doesn't, we're going to be in a world of struggle, and a world of worry, and a world of hurt.
I agree with that. What I was more so saying is that I feel like goalies are kind of up and down in the NHL. I mean, you've even seen UC Saros literally fall off a cliff last year. But with the little track record that Daccord has, him having one really good season was able to secure him $5 million for 5 years. If Grubauer has a similar season or better this year, I'm wondering if teams around the league maybe are like, hey, maybe he has a good year in him with his history of having Vezina finalists in the past. But I don't consider you a Grubauer hater. I'm a Grubauer lover. I don't consider you a Grubauer hater. Okay, so you're good.
I'm just going to say one more thing before anybody else takes over, because I know someone else might want to say something. But if Grubauer has an exceptional season, I would say keep the two. Keep a tandem. If you have two solid goaltenders as a tandem like that, go ahead. I have no problem spending $10.9 million on two solid goaltenders. And that's just facts. Goaltending is one of the hardest positions in the league. If you have two solid, number ones, then play that tandem role. We've seen it with how Boston did it. We've seen it with how other teams have done it. If that's the case, let it go. Let it roll.
Awesome. Well, then we rolled in to Minnesota for the first of our back-to-back games, and this is when we got some just high wire life injected into our veins. It was the word I'd use to describe this game is scrappy. We were scratching and clawing our way back the entire time. Constant back and forth affair. Early in the second period, we went down 2, but then El Capitano Jordan Eberle, he slammed 2 in back to back to bring us right back into it. And from there, the back and forth began. Minnesota would score 1, and then Cartier hammered 1 home. And then Minnesota scored another, and then McCann slammed 1 home on a delayed penalty call. And that led us to the dreaded Seattle Kraken overtime. And I don't know about you guys, but as soon as those OT letters appeared on the scoreboard across the top of my screen, my blood pressure went up a bit, started to get the nervous sweats. The leg was shaking a little bit because last year we were pretty not so great when it came to the overtime department. So I was a little nervous there. And we had really just I don't know how you feel about overtime hockey. Maybe this is a more broad discussion. Like I said, for my blood pressure and just nerves and anxiety, hate it because it just it's 5 minutes of just torture. But I love actually watching, having 3-on-3, all that open space for people to move. The puck's constantly cycling around. It's just so fluid, and there's not as many breaks as there is in the normal game. So I just all the chances that were put up. I was just hanging by a thread, waiting to see what happened. And nothing happened. We went into a shootout, and I'm not sure what our stat line was on shootouts last year. Yeah, thumbs down, garbage, not so great. But we pulled one out here, and Oliver Bjorkstrand and Jordan Eberle were our shootout game scorers, brought it home for us. And there was great rejoice in Seattle and across the Kraken Nation. How do we feel about game number 2, our 5-4 shootout win over the Minnesota Wild?
This was a better game. I will say they've been working a lot on 3-on-3, and that so I wasn't surprised that they at least held their own during that, because it's been a big focus during training camp. They were doing a lot of 3-on-3 work, so it was nice to see that sort of pay off instead of just immediately going down and losing. So I appreciated that. They've also been working on shootout drills, which is also helpful. To be honest, Jordan Everly is usually the one that I say, please don't put him in again, because he usually gets down there and is like, oh wait, I've got to shoot the puck now, and it's like too late. So I held my breath during that and was so pleasantly surprised that he proved me wrong and got one of those shootout goals for us. But overall, like the fact that we could keep coming back from being down is promising, because usually it's been the other way around. So I feel some optimism there as well. If they can take some of that grittiness and take it to the rest of the season, I feel pretty good about that.
For myself personally, like for a fan of hockey, I think this game was just fun to watch because like it was just a back and forth, and like it was anybody's game. And I think so. If you were just a neutral fan watching this game, it was a lot of fun. As a fan of either the Wild or the Kraken, it was stressful. Like I was stressed the entire game watching this. But I have to say, you know, the entirety of last season, we never came back from a 2-0 deficit, like the entire season. So the fact that we were able to do that in game 2 of this season is truly remarkable. I think that's a huge feat and a huge confidence builder. So I'm definitely looking at that as a positive in this. And then Jordan Eberle, I don't know. Normally, from what I've heard from his when he was named captain, he's not a real big talker in the dressing room, but he does a lot of his action on the ice and a lot of his talking on the ice. And he really showed that today, that during that game, you know, registering 2 goals, getting his 300th of his career. You know, I just think he really showed that leadership on the ice, being like, you know, we got to get back in this, boys. Like, let's go. And yeah, it was a fun game, stressful, but glad we got the dub.
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch the game, but I followed along on the radio near the end, and it sounds really exciting. And I'm, you know, a win's a win, so I'm happy about that. And yeah, Jordan Eberle getting that C on his chest and being Superman out there. That's awesome. I love that. I hope that continues.
And Alex touched on it there. There's a couple milestones in that game with that first goal that Jordan Eberle scored. That was his 300th NHL career goal. Very exciting milestone there. So we got the puck at the end of the game. And Mr. Big Rig, Jamie Alexiak, he played in his 600th NHL career game, so he got a puck there as well. One downer note in the game, in the last like minute and a half or so, Vince Dunn took a hit along the boards behind the net, and he was out for the remainder of the game, and he didn't play in the next game against Dallas. I think the last I saw he was listed day to day, so fingers crossed that that day to day comes sooner rather than later and we get to see him back right away. But overall, I think that kind of, like I said before, re-injected that excitement back into the fan base, which then led us into game number 3 last night for us at the time we're recording here. Alex is already scratching his eyebrows. Alex, do you want to take us through the game against the Stars?
The puck was dropped, and the Kraken never showed up. I think that's the best way I can really put it. It was one of those games where back to back, you know, you're kind of hoping for some kind of level of compete. You know, Dallas was also a team that played a game in a back to back, but there just was nothing there. We ended up losing 2-0, 13 seconds for 2 goals in the difference for the Stars there, and yeah, just all around, just poor from start to finish. I think that was the best way to really put it. You know, Dallas Stars players were just left open, like just free to shoot. Grubauer did keep us in the game, and I will say that. So he made this game could have easily been 6-0, like no word of a lie. I will be critical because that second goal that went in was abysmal, and it should have been saved. So critique for Grubauer, but he had a lot of positives because this game could have been out of reach very, very quickly. But these are the type of games that you need to win. You really do. You know, back to back, yeah, you know, Stars did the same thing, but you know, there was no fight, there was no drive. It just seemed flat, and it reminded me of a game from last season. You know, came into it and you knew they weren't going to score, they weren't going to compete the entire game.
I think I have a less grim view of the game. I didn't feel like it was that insanely one-sided. I feel like Dallas really limited our chances in the middle. I feel like they kept us to the outside, which happens a lot to this team. I've noticed, like, it's horrible. We just can't generate stuff going in the middle. One guy that was flying all over the ice, just out of camera frame in and just out. Shane Wright, man, just like he looked like he was going 2 times the speed of every other player on the ice. It was like he was in a different league. It was crazy. I think Larson is a key player of this game. I think his lines, no matter who he was paired with, whether it was Mahura or other players throughout the game, they had the lowest expected goals against, which was really good. So Larson with anyone, man, it's going to be shut down out there, even against Dallas. And that's kind of my next point. It's the Dallas Stars. It would be great to pick up this win, but I mean, this is one of the best teams in the NHL consistently the last couple of years. So I think Grubauer played well, like you said. He did allow that second goal within 13 seconds, which was horrible. But he did register the first goals saved above expected, which I'm huge on. So that's a big deal. He's now in the positive. He's never finished a season in the positive while on the Kraken. He's currently in the positive. So maybe this is a different year for Gru, but yeah.
So you're saying that we should just have him hang it up for the remaining 79 games so he can finish positive?
Absolutely. He should hold out, hold out for a trade. Yes.
I'm not super pessimistic about this one either. It wasn't the most exciting game, but the Stars are very good. And while they did play back to back, they also were playing at home back to back, and they didn't have to travel, right? So I think that's also different for us. Like, we did have to travel, and I know, they're used to that, but at the same time, I know that has to play into it a little bit. Their schedule gets rocked, and I think that also can be something, but I do think there was some positives. I mean, like Derek was saying, Larson did have to switch up his pairings a lot. And I think Valsman was trying to figure out how to get Larson out there the most, because he is so solid with Vince Dunn being out. How do you get him in the game without totally burning him out? And that just meant switching up the pairings. And he was shut down every time he was out there with whomever. It didn't matter. So Lars definitely a big key player there. And yeah, the second goal, I groaned that one went in with Grubauer. It was so painful. But after that, though, you cannot say anything about Grubauer because he was so solid. So many times he saved the game, really. And also, to the defense's credit, I think we saw a lot of after Borgie had sort of a mistake there with that first goal. It's like after that, I did really see Borgie stepped up. Brandon Montour looked great, saved a bunch of those from going in as well. So our defense did look pretty good, all things considered. I just think there's something to build on there, even though it was a shutout game. I do think there's something to build on. There's a lot of film there for them to go through, and I think maybe that's a positive from it.
One more thing I want to say really quick is that the Kraken did generate 2.24 expected goals. So Casey DeSmith, a lot of Stars fans, don't like this guy. A lot of Pittsburgh fans didn't like him when he was on Pittsburgh. He has a troubled past. All that aside, he did play an insanely good game. Amazing shutout by him. And it might just be an execution problem, a finishing problem. We've seen that in the past with the Kraken, generating expected goals, but not being able to catch in on real goals, which are the ones that count, by the way. They're the real ones. But yeah, 2.23 expected goals.
So, Heather, talking about film to go back and watch, you have in our show notes here a line all in caps of something that you picked up, and I logged it too, but you typed it in caps. So what's the big film notes that you want to bring to Coach Bylsma's attention?
Even Alex said this. Trust me, Coach Dan knows exactly what I'm about to say, but there's just too many players being left wide open to go down and score. And we're leaving our goalies just hung out to dry. And it's a pattern in these last 3 games that is what's happening. It's happened in every single game thus far, win or lose. And I think that's a big problem. Now, like we're saying, they can go back and review this film. Trust me, Coach Dan knows. They've seen it too, but that's a big problem because so many of these goals have been scored that way or almost scored that way, and it's really dangerous. So I put that in all caps because I think it's something we need to watch and be aware of, and I want to see them make the correct adjustments. I do think part of it is just some of these newer, younger players adjusting to the NHL. We've seen much as I love Shane Wright, we've seen him be somebody that's left, not been in sort of the right position and let somebody go through, and some of these other younger players. So some of it's a learning curve, and I think they'll figure that out. If they can figure that out, I think that's a big key piece to what's missing right now. And I think, they'll figure it out, because that's, at least we could pinpoint what's wrong, right? Last season, we couldn't pinpoint what's wrong. They kept saying, we don't know what's wrong. And that's frustrating. This is like, oh, I see that. Even somebody like me, to the eye test, we can see that.
All right, and with that weekly recap in the bag, we're going to go to our next segment, which we have called Catch or Yeet. When we're out in the fishing world, sometimes we catch, sometimes we release, but we are the Kraken, so we yeet those fish back. So we're bringing out one highlight and one not so great thing to kind of bring home the conversations this week. And our catch for this week is Kraken prospect Jagger Fergus scored his first ever AHL goal for the Coachella Valley Firebirds on Friday, sending a snipe of a shot from the lower half of the faceoff circle in their 2-1 loss to the Bakersfield Condors. So not the result the team wanted, but it's pretty cool that the Furcus Circus is officially in CV and he is now on the score sheet there. But here at Beneath the Waves, we thrive on controversy and hot takes and bold takes that maybe don't hold out so well. And our bold take for this week, our yeet, what we are sending back is RIP to the Davy Jones hat. For those who are not aware of what I'm talking about, the Davy Jones hat for the last 3 seasons was a gift from Jerry Bruckheimer himself. It was a hat from the set of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and it's what the Kraken used as their Player of the Game award for each game when they would bring home the win. In our time capsule we did at the start of the season, we predicted who is going to win the most Davy Jones hats this season, and as it turns out, that video might already be worthy of being deleted because the Davy Jones hat is no more. Instead, it has been replaced by a Seattle Kraken branded WWE Championship belt, which you can buy for the low, low price of $849.99 Canadian on NHLshop.ca. I don't know how that converts for you American folks,
Like
but
$600.
yeah, well,
Still overpriced.
that sounds much nicer than $850 for us. Kraken internet world kind of went asunder on the reveal of that belt when Jamie Alexiak awarded it to Jordan Eberle for the first game, and we had thoughts as well. Who wants to take the first swing at the
I'll rip,
current status of the Player of the Game award?
I'll rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just go with it. David Jones hat. It's iconic. It's unique. It's one of a kind. It really is. You look at the photos from the previous 3 seasons. It really looked like it meant something. And to just switch it out with some generic fanatic Kraken WWE belt, I don't know. It looks bad. It looks bad. It looks tacky. It looks lame. And I'm gonna be one of those, internet verse peoples that is like, nah, that ain't me. It just there's too many teams that do this belt. You want to be unique. The Davy Jones hat was unique, and this one just ain't it. And I just I know it's something on a very small scale of things to be upset about, but like I just don't like it. I really don't like it. It just seems lame. It really does. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed because I think it was probably the coolest post game tradition in the NHL. And I think it was super, relevant to our identity and culture and like theme, I guess, as a team. Um, and yeah, just pretty disappointed to lose that. I can't see any like marketing or like Kraken business people really thinking that this was like the right decision to move away from if you're like focused on generating hype or generating fan approval, which makes me kind of think that it was the players that led this after like the Burakovsky drop and the bad juju and wanting to move on, brand new coach. But then once I saw the WWE NHL partnership, I was like, oh no, this could be really bad. I think it might just be like for money, like a corporate sort of sellout type thing, which would be very heartbreaking to me. If it's not even the players, then that I would be livid. I'd be LIVD livid at that. So yeah.
Pardon me, can you spell livid again?
LIVED.
You want to try it one more time?
Just move on.
LIV.
Just move on. Just move on. Move on. Yeah, I'm disappointed. The Davy Jones hat was so cool, and I think This is my first team that I'm following as well, and I did not know that this was sort of like a tradition thing. But watching for 3 years now, we're going into 4 years. You see so many other teams have something like a belt, and I always really, really loved that we had something so cool and so unique. So it is disappointing. Now, on the other hand, though, I do really understand wanting to have something different to shake off some of last season. And I understand that completely. New coach, like new dynasty, like let's draw a line in the sand and move forward. I get that completely. I just wish we had done it in a way that was similarly unique to the hat. That's all. Like, I don't like the belt. And I know that not everyone agrees. Some people love the belt. I've seen that, but I have seen the majority of people asking for the hat back. And I think if we can't do the hat, we need something. Like I don't know what, like a ship in a bottle or something. Anything would be better than the belt.
Yeah, I'm 100% Team Heather. I'm not opposed to it being swapped out, but we could have done so much better. Like my beer league hockey team has a championship belt that we had our like school art teacher make that we give to each guy after the game. Like it's not that fancy, it's not that new. I said send someone to the lair to get one of those foam tentacle arms, spray paint it gold, and you pass the golden tentacle around. I don't know, something, but not the belt. The belt's just so boring and played out. And I don't know, maybe they'll listen to the fan response and have some sort of change. Maybe they won't. I don't know. It's not our decision to make, but we can still, we're people on the internet. We can voice our displeasure and voice it over and over and over again. So we'll wait and see. But, in order to get the belt, you have to win some games. So let's worry about that first. And one of my other things, one of my favorite things about the hat videos is seeing them awkwardly fumble around with which way is the front, and they can never quite figure out which way it is. And then in the belt video, you had Ebbs awkwardly trying to figure out how the snaps worked on the back. So he just kind of awkwardly held it with like gorilla arms. It was a thing. I don't know. Small gripes, but like I said,
I feel like
as a rabid fan base have those gripes that we're allowed to give.
I feel like if you're gonna keep it like Kraken based, or even like keep it in run with like the Pirates of the Caribbean theme, like just do something stupid like a jar of dirt. Like, congratulations, you win the jar of dirt, and like the other guy just gets to like hold it up in the air and dance with it, like in the movie. I don't know, something absolutely ridiculous. Like I'm totally game for it. Let's go.
All right. Well, and that's our highlight and our low light, our catch and our yeet, which will bring us to close out the end here. Alex, with our week ahead of hockey, what are we looking at on the horizon?
So we got 3 games this week. Tuesday night we are at Nashville, so we're going to be playing against the Nashville Predators with against the newly Predator Steven Stamkos. So that'll be a very interesting game to watch. I'm excited for it. I think getting a couple of days off is going to be a good reset for the team. But then we're finally back in Seattle at the Climate Pledge Arena. We're going to play Philly on Thursday, so that's going to be a very interesting game because Philly, has a lot of young players, so it's going to be a very interesting game, so to speak, on how they really take that game and see how that unfolds. But the biggest game I think that we have coming up is this Saturday. This Saturday, you need to be in on YouTube watching us because we will be streaming this one. We will be the ones talking from puck drop to the final whistle at 60 minutes. And we will be there the entire time, intermissions, you name it. So if you want to listen to us break down plays, talk about absolute wild takes, or just inside jokes that probably are just absolutely delusional, we are here. We will be here. Links will be on YouTube, and on any form of social media to find us on YouTube. And it's something you don't want to miss because we did this for about half the season last year, and it was an absolute blast. And we're really looking forward to doing it again this season.
And Derek, if people wanted to find us on YouTube or other places, where might they do that?
Yeah, Matt. I don't know if any of you guys are Sports Center fans.
Is it center with an ER and RE?
ER.
Now stop it right now.
We don't get that up here.
We don't spell it with an RE.
Banana. BTW SEA. BTW SEA. BTWSEA on every single platform: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter.
If you're listening to this, you're obviously on Spotify.
Oh yeah.
And if you're listening on Spotify, click the follow button, the sub button on Spotify, click the ratings button. We're going to try to put these out like on a weekly basis. Maybe here and there we'll pop up with new things in between. But in addition to the YouTube content, this is where you'll have our recaps from week to week, as well as our hot takes that we're going to be dishing out. So for the gang here, I am Matt. We have Heather, Alex, and Derek. This has been Beneath the Waves, and thank you for joining us for episode 1.